All right, man, we are live, and I want to do like an intro, but still don't know exactly what we're gonna call. We got this overlay made. It's sweet. Air it out. We're gonna man, shoot, this the Air It Out podcast. Air that hoe out, but we can't put that on a layover. Shout out, got my it's me, my guy Greg Panelli, aka at Pinelli Passing Academy on all his social medias. I'm at Eric_Crocker on Twitter is where you can find me. This show is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code Crocky, and they'll match whatever you deposit if you're in the player.
We're gonna have to make a
over
correction
unders.
to that, Crocky. We gotta make a correction. We already got to make a correction.
Yeah.
It's at Greg_Panelli, but I do appreciate the shout out for the business.
Was that? Is that for like Instagram?
It's no, both of them are. I
Okay,
changed
so
it.
all right.
Twitter is Greg_Panelli, and then I just changed it the other day on Instagram to Greg Panelli. So
Okay, so I don't even know where that came from, but
It's all
okay,
good.
we'll fix all that. We'll fix all that. Look, it is the first time we're doing this, so you know what I'm saying. We got some kinks to kind of work out here.
it's been a
But
while.
it has been a while, and for those of you who don't know, Greg, he has joined us already a bunch of times. We had QB Monday every Monday. He and I went live in the morning to talk all things 49ers, mechanics, Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, all that good stuff. But we're going to do a little different on this show. We're going to talk about not just 49ers stuff, but obviously we will definitely touch on 49ers, but, quarterbacks around the league and everything that y'all, have questions about pertaining to the quarterback position. So let's get started. First, I got to introduce you to the people that don't know. Again, this is Greg Panelli, quarterback guru, QB extraordinaire. And a lot of people talk about the quarterback position on social media. And the first thing I do is I don't act like I know anything. I go straight to Greg. I go straight to guys like JT O'Sullivan. I think those guys know a lot more than me. And I really think that Greg got even more knowledgeable once he got the porn star mustache that he has going on there.
This is week 1.5 or week 2 with the mustache here. So we're gonna see how it plays out.
Is it going to stay? Is it here to stay?
I told you when I talked to you the other day, you saw it on FaceTime and you couldn't stop staring at it, so I just had to bring it up.
Yeah.
I originally made this as a joke, or basically like I had some scruff or whatever, and we were getting ready to go to the beach with some friends, and my wife was in the car already, and I was trimming my face, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna piss her off today. I'm gonna try and piss her off. I've never had a mustache, so I trimmed everything but the mustache, and then we got 5 minutes down the road, and she looked. She's like, "Do you have a mustache?" Yeah, what's the big deal? She said, I kind of like it. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, all right, whatever. And it's like my plan completely flipped on me. And so I was like, all right, well, I'll keep it for a little bit. So maybe it's a Top Gun thing. I don't know. Top Gun came out this year with Rooster in there with his mustache. So I don't know.
Very, very porn star is your wife. She's trying to tell you something.
We're doing it for Jimmy. I told Croc we're going to do it for Jimmy this year. Since Jimmy's not getting any action right now, I'm going to do it for Jimmy.
Porn star Jimmy. Greg, I have to talk a little bit about some of the things that you do. All right, for the people that don't know, Greg is a quarterback trainer. He is stationed there out in the Central Valley of California, but trains quarterbacks all over. So much so they train some quarterbacks out here in Arkansas. You were on a road trip and you had a quarterback, right? And was this your first time doing a pro day? Because so he set up a whole thing. I know you've done things with Fresno State and some of those guys, but you had a pro day that you put on for a quarterback at Kentucky, the Kentucky Wildcats in the SEC. And it was cool. Seeing you on ESPN, you're there, you're directing them. I'm like, man, he's like a real quarterback coach there. All right, and you and I, we go back. So for people that don't know, we go back. I got the Modesto Junior College Pirates chair behind me. We went to Modesto Junior College together. But to see you excel the way you have with your quarterback training and how it's taken off, it's been a blast. So was that your first time putting it on an actual
That
pro day?
was my second time. So I did do one at Fresno State. 2019, I did pro day there. That was with Damari Scott was one of the receivers that was kind of working out with us. So I had the script for him, and then we ended up having a quarterback come up from Cal Lutheran and actually did the pro day because the quarterback the year prior, or maybe it was 2018. The quarterback the year prior, Marcus McMarion, wasn't throwing. He was going to be on doing his pro day the next year. So it was the year Marcus was going into his senior year, and I trained him. But the 2018 year, I did Fresno State pro day. Had a quarterback come up, like I said, from Cal Lutheran, and then But officially, like as far as doing SEC Pro Day, yeah, it was the first time like on the big stage doing SEC Pro Day. So I did take a road trip out there. I was going to fly initially and then ended up taking my assistant, Thomas. We just said, screw it, made the little road trip that you do quite often, all the way from California, went through, what was it? Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Nashville, went through Tennessee, and then up to Kentucky. So, but yeah, obviously I was blessed to go there to the Smith's house and go see the Benton High School facility and train some quarterbacks there in Arkansas on the way there. And then on the way back, obviously we got to meet up and we did the Crocky's Pro Day there in Benton and gave you a little taste of the Pro Day. So, yeah, it was good, man. It's been good. It's been fun training quarterbacks. It's finally slowing down a little bit just because obviously they're getting into their season. It's week 1 of the high school season here in California. So, things are going to be slowing down a little bit, but I'm excited to take some time and kind of dive into more of the NFL and the college game and some of the prospects that are coming up and some of the recruiting stuff that's going on and paying attention to some of my college guys that I have right now too. So.
That's awesome. So I do want to kind of get into kind of mechanics, and obviously we'll get into Trey Lance. We'll get into Jimmy Garoppolo because you've noticed some things about Jimmy G and the way he's kind of throwing now, right? It's something you feel like is a little improved or will help improve velocity. I have some questions about this like hop thing that Aaron Rodgers is doing. But first I want to start by asking about quarterback mechanics. And a lot of people talk about it, right? They talk about throwing motions and feet and I don't know. I don't know any of this stuff. That's why I go to you all the time for you to kind of answer these questions for me. So when people just kind of throw it out there, right, or at least people on social media, what they think they know and whatnot about mechanics, but what exactly does it mean when people talk about quarterback mechanics and what kind of goes into having good mechanics?
I would say the first thing when people talk about mechanics, the first thing that is apparent to a lot of people is the stroke, right? From the ball from the carriage to when, and I'm just saying from people noticing from the outside looking in, not even necessarily in the quarterback world, but most of the general population probably could see it right away is somebody's arm motion, whether they lift the ball up, whether they push it back, whether it's ducked down. Obviously, Trey kind of does this little set up top in his carriage and then goes down. So everybody kind of has a different backstroke. And a lot of people, that's usually the first thing that they notice. And especially if guys are baseball dudes, Russell Wilson, Josh, Pat Mahomes. I don't know if Trey Lance was a baseball guy or not, but a lot of the quarterbacks that we see in the NFL at some point or another were baseball guys, especially this newer generation of quarterbacks where we're not necessarily lifting the ball up on the shelf like they had back in the day, or like they called it back in the day, is like keep the ball on the shelf up here, because when you release it or when you get ready to throw, it's quicker. That's kind of all gone out the window. And so there's a ton of biomechanics studies now talking about tying in your feet and the hips to the upper half of the body and making sure that you're in proper sequencing to create the right amount of power to throw the football or maximize the right amount of power versus before it was just like how fast can you get the ball out. And that stuff all changes depending on certain throws or certain situations, right? So if it's a short game throw, quick game throw, you need to dump it off. Obviously, nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to say anything. You're basically flicking the ball at that point. And guys at that level obviously do that very well. When there's throws that are a little bit more down the field, then guys become a little bit more elongated. Motions become longer. Stride length becomes longer typically too, in order for guys to try and drive that ball down the field. But from a quarterback perspective, I would say most of it starts with the feet. Then you kind of go in feet to the hips, and then the upper half and the lower half are kind of two separate things. And trying to get those two to match up together is probably the hardest thing to do. But if you can get it, you'll notice it right away. From a lot of younger quarterbacks notice it. And then guys in the NFL are trying to work those timing things over and over. And then there's ways to work it where you don't necessarily have your feet underneath you, and you have to create power from just the upper half, right? So there's a bunch of different scenarios from mechanics, but obviously we'll talk about some of Trey's stuff and what he's probably worked on this offseason and some of those changes and some of the things with Jimmy as well.
Yeah, well, and we got a super chat from Jesus or Jesus. We are going to get to that super chat once we get into talking about Trey Lance. So just hang tight with us for a second. But I want to start with Jimmy Garoppolo because you noticed something about Jimmy Garoppolo with his kind of, I don't want to say new and improved throwing motion, but
Yep.
it was something right away where you said, hey, he's doing something a little different that you feel might generate a little bit more power.
Yeah. So I think watching Jimmy just from the practice stuff, I don't know if it was like fan video or NBC Bay Area videos, whatever it may be. I saw it. I think it was day one, day two stuff when he was out there on the field throwing it. And Jimmy, as most people notice, has always been a cleaner, mechanical guy. He's gotten the ball very fast when he throws, especially in his mid game or short game stuff. The ball is out pretty quick, and when he does that, uh, I'm looking at this video here. He looked a little bit longer. So instead of being so quick to get that ball out, his stride length looked a little bit longer, and it looked like he was a little bit more kind of whippy and dippy. We call it dippy, but whippy. That's kind of like a little hashtag term that some of the quarterback coaches use across the country. But he gets a little bit dippy with it, and he's creating some whip. And I'm curious to see with him dropping the ball down a little bit more on some of these throws. If I made that mention, like he had that shoulder surgery, I don't know if it's going to be one of those rookie of the year Henry Rowan Gardner situations where he's able to throw the ball harder now because he had a shoulder surgery. So I don't know. I'm curious to see. Obviously, I haven't seen it in person. This is just going off a video that we're seeing. But it looks like he's a little bit longer, and he's obviously not trying to throw the ball, 100 miles an hour right there. But he looked like he um, and there's an off-platform type of throw right there. But if you look, Jimmy's always been one of the cleaner guys mechanically, I think, in the NFL. A lot of teach tape you can use for his mechanics. But as far as driving the ball downfield, and that's something that he's always been knocked for, that's a whole different story. But mid-level game and short-level game, I think obviously Jimmy's always been one of the more fluid guys in the NFL. But one of the things that I think always hurt Jimmy, especially going to the right, was having his feet set, trying to get his feet into a straight line throw. I think once he got that knee injury, especially, he would fly open a lot with the front foot. So he seemed pretty good to the left, but throws to the right, he kind of fly open too much with his left foot. Then the hips and the shoulders both open, and then basically it becomes a push, and you're killing your velocity. So like a baseball term for it, back in the day, I remember my dad used to put a bat right behind your back foot or behind your front foot, so you're not stepping in the bucket or you're not stepping on the bat. It's kind of that same situation with quarterbacks. Yeah, you want to step slightly off your midline, but if you fly that hip open too much, now you're basically giving up some of that power from your hips, and your shoulders have to try and stay coiled to try and create power from the upper half. So I think Jimmy going to the right kind of struggled to create power, but going to the left, he was already opening a little bit more to the left and would pull it a little bit more across his body. And I think he was able to create some more power going to the left side. But we'll see. I haven't seen it in person. I'm curious to see what it really looks like in person, or how that ball is really popping out. But clearly, I don't know when those videos were. If it's day 3, day 4, if it's current stuff, I'm really not sure.
Where do you think the disconnect is with Jimmy Garoppolo? Because how I hear quarterback coaches talk about him, and then how I hear fans talk about him, for the most part, it's kind of drastically different, right? I mean, you have a lot of fans who love Jimmy Garoppolo and they see him for what he is, and they see the W's. You have some fans that just think like, oh my gosh, like they just need to hurry up, move on from him, like he needs to go by. But when I hear quarterback guys talk about him, there's a lot to Jimmy Garoppolo's game that they appreciate. So what's one of the things that you really appreciate? I know you talked about kind of his upper body throwing mechanics, getting the ball out right now, but you've kind of been, I don't want to say like, what they call them, Jimmy sexuals or something. But you like you.
That's what you're coming up with, Croc?
No, that's what they call. That's what they call people like that do that. They call them. Listen, it's not me. I don't make this stuff up.
Oh man, this is tough.
But that's what. So people that like.
I have. I've always appreciated. Do I think? And I remember last year, everybody like, oh, Jimmy sucks, Jimmy sucks, Jimmy sucks. Now, realistically speaking, okay, and we talked about this before. Obviously, they've moved on from Jimmy, right? It's not hard to tell that he's not going to be the guy this year. So, from what we were given with Jimmy Garoppolo to what the Niners had prior, before Jimmy showed up, it was a dumpster fire, right? They bring Jimmy in, he goes 5-0. They end up offering him a contract because if they did not, somebody else was going to pay him, and the Niners were going to go right back to square one with where they were, right? He ends up getting hurt against the Chiefs, comes back the next year, throws for 4,000 plus. The Niners offense is cooking. They go to the Super Bowl, right? Comes back the next year, ends up not being so healthy. He's dealing with issues here and there with his health stuff.
The high ankle sprains.
Ankle stuff was lingering, whatever it may be. Then comes back. He's healthy last year for the most part, right? And Niners end up going to an NFC Championship game. Now, that was with two different sets of running backs. I get it, Kyle's running back situation. He's always made do with what he's got. I think Kyle's play calling abilities have helped out Jimmy, but I've also think at the same time may have limited him. We don't know necessarily. But
real quick, why do you think that there is potential that he could kind of limit Jimmy Garoppolo a little bit? Which, again, I can see a scenario where that's true as well. Kyle Shanahan's offense is extremely difficult, and a lot of it is based on timing and rhythm, as opposed to even where Jimmy Garoppolo came from with the New England Patriots, which still there's an element of timing and rhythm, but it's a little bit more kind of wide open, and I feel like there's a little bit more room for error, I guess you could say, because it's so spread out for the most part. But why do you think that?
I think that obviously Jimmy's not the best deep ball thrower, right? And I think to an extent, and you talked about it a few weeks ago with the Deebo Samuel thing, and I sent you that clip on the Bears, right, where Deebo went over the top and or Jimmy threw it over the top and got the ball. And I said, why aren't we doing this stuff more often? But it wasn't great, obviously, when he threw the ball deeper downfield. But at the same time, they were able to function for so long with a good solid ground game, a good short game, and a good mid-level game that I don't think Kyle felt the need to take those risks to try and get the ball or push the ball downfield when he knew that Jimmy was probably going to be 80% or better underneath, or everything under 25 yards or 20 yards or whatever it may be. I also don't think we necessarily had, and some people will probably argue this, but I don't think we necessarily had go-getter deep ball receivers, if you would. The guys that were your Julio Jones type of dude that was going to play outside and you can throw up a 50-50 ball and go get it. I think Deebo has that potential. But at the same time, if you put a Deebo Samuel against, a Richard Sherman when in his prime, I don't think Deebo's going to go out jump Richard Sherman. There's no Brandon Lloyd on the team right now, right? Or maybe there is now, but
catches.
There hasn't been, that's going to be to go up and go do spec catches. So, no, I think people don't give him enough credit because of the fact that he gave the Niners an opportunity to win every single week. He wasn't trash. It wasn't so bad that you're like, let's not get blown out this week, right? You go into games with Jimmy Garoppolo knowing you had a pretty damn good shot to win week after week, and I think you'd probably agree with that. And I think that most people on here would agree with it. Was there mistakes made? Yeah, but everybody makes mistakes. Was there more mistakes sometimes than others in certain games? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I think he did give the Niners a good opportunity to win games. And we're going to see what's going to happen with Trey. I think, going into the whole Trey Lance situation, that he brings a whole different dynamic to the offense, and I think that people are excited to see it. I think that it was probably good that Trey sat and learned last year, and he'd probably say the same thing. Hold
on, we're going to get to Trey Lance. We're going to get to Trey Lance because we're going to transition into him right now. We got Chris, and he says 2017 kind of was a dumpster fire, that situation with the quarterbacks. You got Brian Hoyer, and they even had Matt Barkley and obviously C.J. Beathard. And it was a dumpster fire because they passed on Mahomes and Watson because they just knew that they wanted Kirk Cousins. And obviously they didn't end up getting Kirk Cousins, and they definitely didn't get Watson or Patrick Mahomes. But that was definitely a huge kind of whiff by Kyle Shanahan. And that wasn't the only time that Kyle kind of misplayed a situation at the quarterback position. Clearly, his main goal heading into the offseason of 2021 season was to kind of, okay, I messed up. Let me try to fix it. He looked into getting Matthew Stafford. Couldn't get him. The Rams beat him to it. He looked into
Right.
getting Deshaun Watson. He ended up liking to get his booty hole tickled. And so then it's like, all right, what do I do now? I got to go out and I got to get a young quarterback. And so he ended up going with Trey Lance. Now, we definitely have some questions here as it pertains to Trey Lance, and we're going to get to all your guys' questions, especially these super chats here. But, or we'll start with this here first. We got Jesus here, and he says, I noticed Trey wasn't wearing a QB wristband in Friday's game. Do you think do you guys think it's because he knows the playbook that well, or because they haven't installed the entire playbook? And kind of what Jesus is referring to is previously, even Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, we'll go back further than that. Originally, Kyle Shanahan said he doesn't like his quarterbacks wearing wristbands, and he had allowed Jimmy to wear a wristband because he was so new to the offense. And then he kind of just like stuck with that and allowed Jimmy Garoppolo to wear the wristband. I think he wanted guys to hear the play calls and be able to spit the play calls out and kind of read it back and et cetera, right? But eventually they went away from that. And they were like, all right, we're going to have the wristbands. And then what he's saying, which I didn't even notice, Friday, Trey Lance, no wristbands. So do you think that is maybe Trey Lance starting to have a little bit more of a grasp of the offense and maybe understanding a little bit more of what Kyle wants? And you can answer that, and then we'll get into some of the thoughts on Trey Lance and where he's at in his development.
Yeah. No, I think realistically, so like Tom Brady still wears a wristband, right? And I would be hard pressed to think that Tom Brady knows the playbook by now for the Bucks, and he knew the playbook for the Patriots. Josh still wears a wristband. Some guys like it. It could be like an OCD thing, like that's part of their swag that they rock with it, you know. I think obviously Jimmy wore it when he first came to the 49ers. They were undefeated, so maybe that was like his superstition thing because he had it and they went 5-0 and he just continued to wear it. But also at the time when he came, he was thrown into an offense where you had to learn the intricacies of this offense within 2 weeks before you were tossed into the game. So yeah, looking at the wristband would help. I think for the Trey Lance situation, I don't know if he'll wear a wristband or not. Maybe he doesn't need it. I would take a guess that if he didn't wear it on Friday, probably not going to wear it, but he probably didn't need to wear it Friday because I'm sure that Kyle scripted those plays anyways for a preseason game and already knew kind of what they were going to run or what they were going to show in the preseason as far as, basic run situations, basic pass plays. There was probably 4 or 5 pass plays that he knew he was going to run with Trey and 4 or 5 run plays that he knew he was going to run with Trey. And I forget the count on how many plays, but I know obviously it was 4 or 5 passing. So I believe
like
probably
12 total plays or something like that.
Yes, I'm sure most of them. Usually, in most cases, the head coach scripts the first 15, 20 plays of a game, anyways. So Trey obviously had an idea of which plays were going to be called. But yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. I don't know if Trey was wearing one last year. But if he does wear one, great. If he doesn't, I don't know if it's really going to matter. I would say that, yeah, he doesn't need to actually look down when there's a play call because he can, have it memorized when it does come through the microphone in the helmet. So, but I think going into the game with Trey, late night, I see late night Crock Talk. You never know where late night Crock Talk is going to go these days. After last year's, some of those podcasts we had last year, it got a little spicy. So you never know where late night Crock Talk is going to go. But anyways, I think.
Let's talk about Trey Lance, right? And obviously coming out of North Dakota State, he's this guy who has very limited experience. He literally redshirted 1 year. Played the next year, albeit they went undefeated at the FCS level. And a lot of people kind of crap on the FCS or whatever. They even kind of throw out like, oh, he played D2. I'm like, dude, this dude did not play D2. He played FCS, which is Division I AA. And not only did he do that, like he played like in one of the better conferences. He played at the highest level. And obviously, we know North Dakota State, they're a juggernaut up there. And he led his team to being undefeated during his time there. 28 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions as a freshman. had a bunch of rushing touchdowns, etc. Right? I mean, he balled out. He was like the Walter Payton Player of the Year and whatnot. Right? So we're talking about a guy who played extremely well, but still a very small sample size in the sense of kind of where he's at in his development. So you are talking about a guy who hasn't thrown a whole lot of passes, and you just kind of uttered the words that, hey, Trey Lance will probably tell you that he needed that first year to sit behind Trey Lance when a lot of other people were kind of wanted him to get on the field and wanted to kind of force him out there.
Right.
But why do you believe, at least from your thoughts, right, of just kind of understanding the quarterback position, everything that goes into it, and obviously his limited experience, what benefits do you think he really had from sitting?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and anybody will tell you, obviously having Tyler Bray, one of the guys that I've trained that was on the roster towards the end of the year last year with the Niners, um, talking about going from he was the backup for Alex Smith for 5 years over there with the Chiefs, and then he went to the Bears for 3 years, and then he ended up going to the Niners, and all of those teams are the other two teams obviously being West Coast offense teams, and then going to the Niners being a West Coast offense style team. Typically, and I have the playbooks, you'll see a lot of the West Coast offense calls are very, very similar. Protections are similar. It's like the 2-jet, 3-jet protections, if people have heard that before. A lot of the routes are kind of similar. The route tree stuff is very similar. So from team to team, it's just very few tweaks sometimes. And then going to the Niners, Tyler had mentioned that it was basically like learning German for him, going completely opposite or in a different direction with routes that were called a certain thing for historically, or a certain thing historically with West Coast offense. Play calls with Kyle's is completely different. So a lot of new verbiage that was basically put in by Kyle, and I don't know if that's something that his dad did. Some of the protection stuff was a little bit different. So I think going from college, where you have a certain play style or play calling style, some of it's no huddle, some of it's more pro style, where you're actually going to huddle up. Words are a little bit shorter, it's more condensed. You might get the protection, and then you could get like a call in college. It might be gun trips right, 2-jet blue, and that blue concept means a certain thing for every receiver on the field, versus the NFL, where it's a whole elongated sentence, and they're flipping plays and basically telling everybody exactly what they're doing, and so it gets a little bit elongated. So I think the biggest thing that obviously sticks out is learning the offense, then adjusting to, I think, the speed, adjusting to the locker room, proving that you're a leader, earning that right to be the leader in the locker room.
And real quick, how hard is that? Like when you're a guy who's drafted number 3 overall, the writing's on the wall with everything that's going to happen, right? It's like, hey, this is going to be the guy. That's why they spent so much draft capital. But you have this other guy in your in your locker room still, Jimmy Garoppolo, who everyone looks to being the leader. So how difficult is that of a situation for this young guy, number 3 overall pick? Maybe he has all these expectations for himself, and everybody's looking at it like, fool, you ain't the leader of this. Like, then you have no chance. Like, this is our guy. How difficult of a situation is that for a guy like Trey Lance?
Yeah, I would say, and I know you've been in locker rooms where things get a little bit fuzzy sometimes, or coach says so and so starting this week over somebody else, and you're like, it gets a little bit awkward, right? So like, I could imagine last year's locker room was probably a little bit different than years prior, just because of that fact. It's like there's kind of that shadow, or there's that weight on Jimmy's shoulders, like, hey, you got the young gun that they gave up a ton of draft capital to go get. That's basically Kyle's dude being funneled in week by week by week. I think that most guys aren't clueless if you're going to give up that much capital. I mean, fans as well. The only way, and we talked about this last year, I think the only way that Jimmy would have stayed on this roster this year, and this is a stretch, is if the Niners won the Super Bowl. I think that's the only way. And maybe somebody could argue that, but if this dude went off last year and they go win the Super Bowl, okay, maybe then they're talking about a whole different scenario. But besides that, 2 first rounds, and I think it was the comp third that they gave up. Yeah, the writing's on the wall. For somebody of Jimmy's stature and his age, you can't be that stupid to not realize that that they're going to end up probably replacing you here pretty soon. So I think with what Trey's done from a leadership standpoint, his work ethic through the offseason, he was obviously down training with Tom House in 3D QB this year. And I think some of the things that they worked on was we talked about the sequencing, trying to time up his upper half from his lower half. As you can tell, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to basically tell his upper half, this motion where it's going up and down, or where he sets that ball carriage and then pushes down, that really hasn't changed too much. But I think what they really worked on was trying to tie up the timing between him doing this and his front stride going in the right direction, and getting his foot down on the ground quicker. Because a lot of times if you can get that front foot to get on the ground quicker, your arm has to play catch up. And so therefore your arm will start speeding up a little bit quicker. So I think those are probably the biggest things they worked on. Some of his pocket movement stuff, pocket awareness, and obviously on the mental side as well, are some of the things that they went and worked on this offseason. So
What in the sense of kind of where you feel like he was last year, right? We got to watch him in 2 games, obviously including the preseason games, 5 games and whatnot. But you got to watch him in several games. You saw where he was, and you saw where you could kind of feel like, okay, I think these are things that he needs to improve on. Where do you feel like he's at now, and what things do you see that he needs to continue to work on?
yeah, I think the one thing I noticed the other day, right when he came out, he looked confident the other day. That was the way that he came out on the field, the way he, just from the point of hitting, jogging on the field. You talked about his swag that he had on the field. Like that kind of goes all in together with the way that you carry yourself out on the field. So I think that he looked confident, which was great. He wasn't like a deer in headlights the other day. But I think as he continues, and the good thing about it is he was doing that with guys that week 1 weren't even probably going to be on the field with, maybe the exception of a couple, right? But he didn't have Ayuk. He didn't have Deebo Samuel. And there was a couple others that were missing in that game. So
Running back, Trent Williams.
Yeah, so a lot of those guys weren't even in. So if he was showing that confidence with some of the twos, I can imagine it's got to be even better, especially the way that they've been going off in practice with him and Ayuk. I think those two are going to have a huge year. And I think with Ayuk, I remember him coming out of Arizona State, like they were talking about his reach. I think he had the biggest reach. Was it out of all the receivers?
Yeah, his arms are like Calvin Johnson's arm.
Yeah, something crazy. So that's why when he went up and he got a ball the other day at practice, like, dude, it's finally good to see him do this. And then actually push the ball down the field. So I think as he continues to gel, people got to understand, and I know this is the hardest thing, but people got to understand, these dudes are also people. They are going to screw up. Trey Lance is going to screw up this year. It's going to happen. Tom Brady screwed up. Russell Wilson is screwed up. Aaron Rodgers seems to kind of screw up at some point, once a year, twice a year. It's going to happen. But when it does, it can't go straight to panic mode, right? You can't force the issue with the young kid. You got to give it time. And I think if people give it time and let Trey get comfortable and kind of get his feet wet, I expect good things out of him. I think the athleticism that he's got, the arm strength, clearly, I think that, again, his leadership from what it looks like so far is solid. So, and he seems to talk to the media pretty well. So he looks like he's fitting in, becoming that true leader of the team right now. And he's got guys in his prime with Kittle and Deebo Samuel. Obviously not having to worry about the Deebo Samuel stuff. Trent's in, and the defense looks stellar. So I think that there's a lot of good things heading into the season that fit for Trey to have success versus coming into some, again, where a lot of rookies get tossed into crappy situations and it's a dumpster fire for year 1, 2, 3, and then they're out of there. So I'm excited for Trey. I think it's going to be a solid year for him.
All right, here we go. I got one more question. No, we'll get into some of the super chats here and questions because people had questions about Trey Lance. All right, so Trey has issues with short passes, and then somebody said, "Is it an arm problem?"
His front arm problem probably mean like his front arm flying open, maybe, or him pushing the ball down. That was one of the things, and we talked about this last year on the podcast, last year on the podcast during the Texans game when he started, and I was at the game. His quarterback coach, Quincy Avery, we were both there. Talked a little bit about Trey and talked a little bit before the game. So shout out Quincy Avery. But I think that Trey that's the one thing, the one difference you're going to see on short game where you can, I think, afford to shorten up the motion and change the mechanics a little bit. He's still a little elongated on short, quick game stuff, trying to get the ball out, especially on like a gimme flat route from, I think it was use check, or gimme quick outs. It should be basically it's like an extended.
You talking about in the preseason game it was Ross Dwelly?
No, the one last year, the Texans game. When they played at home, he dumped the ball off, and it was like ended up being way behind. I think it was use check out of the back.
Yeah, that was use check. You talking about it was like the right side, like
the right side of the field. Yeah. So, and that was one of the things I noticed is like he really didn't change things up. Where a lot of guys kind of change their motion and get the ball out a little bit quicker. He kept that same elongated motion. So I think that might have something to do with it because you're trying to rush and play catch up, especially on quick game stuff or dumping the ball to a running back. But I think his front side, there was a video came out a couple of weeks ago. It was like routes on air or whatever it may be. And he missed behind. I don't know if it was Ayuk, and everybody was like throwing a fit. This is the quarterback, blah, 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 blah. And we talked about it, and it looked like his front foot blocked off his front side. So if you're throwing to the left, obviously you'd want to cut your receiver off. So typically you want to cut your receiver off with your front step if you can to try and
What does that mean?
Like if I'm going to throw a ball to the middle of the field, right, or to the hash. Let's say I'm going to throw a dig route, which would say a 15-yard in from the outside. So somebody's running it from the numbers, and I want to hit them in the second window on that left hash. I'd want to be able to align my feet pretty damn close to the hash or right up the hash to create a straight line throw. I'm not going to step my foot wide enough to where he's getting out of his break, because then my hip is already open and my left foot's already open too much. My front side is completely exposed. By the time I throw that ball in the second window, I'm completely open with my stance and I'm pushing the ball at that rate. So being able to quickly realign your feet and try and create straight line throws, when he had that out to the left the other day, it looked like he blocked his front side off, meaning he stepped where the receiver was breaking on his ass instead of getting his feet more aligned towards the sideline, and he tried to pull it across his body. That was kind of one of the things that I noticed. But
real quick, when you see things like that, because again, the fan is going to see it and they're going to say, "Oh man, he's just inaccurate. How do you miss that?" When you see it, do you say, "Okay, this is what he did, and well, he can fix that if he puts in the work"?
Yeah, and a lot of these things is just trying to rush it. But at the same time, we do try and train for certain situations where you can't necessarily get your feet aligned. You got to be able to throw that ball across the body or off platform, creating power with just the upper half. And sometimes, you know what, it's going to be crap. There's times where we talked about it with Josh. Sometimes we talked about it with Bray. Times we talk about it, like you can watch Aaron Rodgers sometimes when he doesn't necessarily have his feet in line to throw. The result isn't necessarily the greatest. And sometimes they get away with it. There was one last year, Pat Mahomes. He threw that ball. It was like, I don't know if it was 4th and 1 or 4th and goal.
Yeah, it was in the dirt near the end zone.
Right? Yeah, it was straight into the ground. But if you go back and watch that video, he's trying to find the laces or trying to find his grip. And as he's doing that, his stride length keeps going out, and he keeps swinging his left foot way past his body. And then he tried to play catch up with his arm, and by then it was too late. He threw the ball right into the ground. And now we're talking Patrick Mahomes, who's one of the best throwers, I think, of the football in the game right now. So it happens with everybody. It's going to happen at some point or another, but it happens with everybody.
So we have this question, and we're not going to answer it yet. We're going to get back to it. But someone said, thoughts on Jake Haener and his draft projection. And you trained Jake. You trained Jake Haener. So we're going to get back to that question. I'm going to star that so we can answer that after we get to some of these more questions, a few more of these questions. Trey is going to be fine in college system. Kid gives me Steve Young and McNair vibes. All right. So, I mean, again, I think that's kind of tough, on the kid who's.
I was going to say that's a pretty good comp right there. That's not bad.
Yeah, it's tough when you kind of throw out Steve Young, you throw out Steve McNair. But I guess I'll say this because there's been comps all over the place on this kid. And I don't even know who to compare him to. I guess just kind of compare him to himself and just see how he develops. But I guess from a developmental standpoint, I guess you could say, and I'm not saying he's as talented as this guy, but do you see similar things that he needs to work on as Josh Allen? Because I mean, you train Josh Allen, you work with Josh Allen. So are there things where you see like, okay, I can see a similarity in some of their abilities and some of the things that they need to work on in their first few years?
Yeah, I think that the feet are the biggest thing. I think Josh cleaned up his feet a lot. I think he cleaned up his shoulder level a lot, trying to keep his shoulders a little bit more even, especially on deeper balls where a lot of guys will lean and tilt, or mid-level routes. Like Josh cleaned up. I thought going into the draft, Josh's feet and the layered balls, like the two-level balls where we've talked about this before. Like a one ball would be your fastball, right? You're going to throw a slant, and you're going to try and fit it in a window in zone coverage. You're going to try and throw in comebacks. Those are balls on a line. They're lasers, right? Then your three ball is your go-getter, your home run shot over the top, right? Then your two ball is a layered throw. And Josh did it very well a couple of years ago against the Niners during that COVID season where they played at Arizona. He threw a ball right over Fred Warner's head and layered it over one defender, and typically it's in front of another defender, like a cover two corner where it's hard with an arc type of throw. So it's
Right.
enough to be layered over somebody, but drops in where it doesn't necessarily hang out in the air. I think that was something that Trey needed to work on. I think that was something Josh needed to work on. I think that's a confidence thing as well as being able to accelerate your arm and not just kind of give up on balls. Jimmy was decent at it, but we saw a lot of balls last year. I don't know why last year, but we saw a lot of them kind of being sailed over dudes' heads, or they became jump balls for Kittle, whatever it may be. So that was kind of frustrating to watch. But the biggest thing for me was the feet for both of those guys. And I think if they both cleaned up their feet, obviously Josh did and has cleaned up his feet. But you also got to understand baseball players or just athletes in general, but guys, especially with baseball players, because typically they're good with their hands and they're good without aligning their feet. Talk about turning two, right? You come across a bag sometimes. Guys don't necessarily always flip their feet to align to a throw. What they do is they coil up that upper half of their body to create torque, and then they'll throw it sidearm or they'll change arm angles, whatever it may be. Quick game, screen game, they do the same thing with a catch, and they'll throw it quick or catch, and they'll just pivot their body and throw. They are able to do these types of athletes we're talking about. They're exceptional athletes. Trey, Pat, Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. Those guys can make all these different throws from all these different arm angles with their bodies in all these different positions. But the flip side of it is sometimes they try and get away with these things a little bit too much, I think, and then it ends up hurting them versus where they might rush a situation where I can throw this ball without necessarily setting my feet. And on the flip side, they actually had time to flip their feet. So I think they try and get away with these things. And I don't blame them because they've gotten away with it their whole life. But there's going to be those situations where, those guys don't necessarily have to throw the ball with their feet in the ground or feet aligned. And they can make some exceptional throws with just the upper half of their body. So
I got a question here from Aaron, and he says, why do quarterback experts hate the way Trey throws so much? Did you get the sense that people hate the way he throws, like quarterback experts? Because I feel like I hear it more so from fans than even some of the higher up, like QB guys. I go to JT O'Sullivan for a lot of stuff, and JT was like, I asked him, I said, hey, man, do you see this? And he's like, no issues. Like his biggest thing was like the feet.
Right. So that's why I think that we talked about it when he was with Tom House this offseason, working specifically on the feet to tie in the feet to the upper half. So, again, the old school way to throw it, a lot of guys talked about it's like the Tedford thing. And shout out Coach Tedford. He's been a phenomenal quarterback coach. And he's here at Fresno State, obviously coached Aaron Rodgers there at Cal, where the ball would be on the shelf, right? It's holding the ball here and basically pushing it up or lifting the ball. But in doing so, they basically found out a lot of guys that did that. Yes, the ball would come out maybe somewhat quicker sometimes, but you might be sacrificing power because you're sequencing with the lower half or with your feet and your hips is not tied in together. So when guys would lift it, their hip and their arm would fire at the same time, right? And you want to get what we call dissociation or disconnecting the upper half and the lower half, just like a fighter or any rotational athletes, baseball hitters. What do? It's baseball feet, baseball hitting, and throwing a football or throwing in general are very, very similar. You watch a guy where he'll take that front step, and as he takes that front step, what does he do with his front shoulder? It's like a slight coil, right, with the front shoulder, and then he'll unwind the hips, and then the arms will chase, right? Same concept throwing a football, but you got to get the front foot on the ground. And I think that's the biggest thing that they worked on with Trey is trying to shorten that front stride, get the foot on the ground, so then the arm becomes a little bit quicker and a little bit more in sequence. The timing through the wrist is a little bit better, and he'll tighten up the spiral as well.
You know what? That's a great point. And as you were saying that, I was kind of visualizing Barry Bonds. And Barry Bonds, his front step when he goes to hit is really short. He picks it up, puts it down, but he has some of the.
And then he'll get it on the ground quickly.
Yeah, well, he has some of the fastest hands I've ever seen.
And so that's the thing. If you got quick hands, you have to be even quicker with the bottom half to create the power. If you take the bottom half away from Barry Bonds, yeah, I'm sure he'd probably still be able to hit some jacks, right? But if you watch his front foot get on the ground quickly, if you watch how quickly his hands move, you have to get your front foot on the ground quickly. And that's what I was saying. Guys would lift the ball and kind of stride and get stuck here, and then their hips would fire at the same time. You'd have to speed up everything from the lower half in order for everything to be the same if you lifted the ball. So now people like to say, Trey's is too long. It is longer, but that's kind of how the game has gone. Now it's being a little bit more fluid. It's whippy, right, where he's creating this power from a different arm slot that doesn't look as clean as some people want it to look. But at the end of the day, what is the end result, right? So if the end result is good, then who cares about what it looks like?
All right, here we go. So my guy, let me see, where is that? Gammon had Gammon, we're probably not going to answer this one about Dr. Disrespect's bomb, which he did launch that. But for the contribution, we will bring this one up. And he says, wobbly balls, why do they happen and how do you fix them? And obviously, he's talking about Trey Lance. And we've talked about kind of Trey Lance working with when we watched his pro day. And the ball came out, his hand fine. Didn't look to see any type of wobble or anything in there. I know you're looking for a ball right now.
Yeah, I'm looking for a football right now. I don't think I have one in here. But yeah, it's in the other office. I don't have one on me right now.
All right, he doesn't have a ball on him right now, y'all.
Normally I do, but it's a wrist issue where they'll take the ball back. So you'll take the ball back, and typically you want to keep the elbow and the wrist tied in together. So if you take the ball back here, right, at some point or another, when you get through, right, and the elbow leads above the shoulder typically, or it's down here, it's tying this in together with the elbow and the wrist. If you get some flexion right here, you get some flexion here. I don't know if you can see it where it's here or here too much, whatever it may be. It's called like breaking your wrist essentially, or snapping it over too soon. If your timing is off, right, where your front foot might be a little bit longer, and by the time you're ready to snap or pronate that wrist over, because the index finger is the last finger that touches the football. So when you snap it over out front, sometimes the front side might fly open. Okay, so what has to happen? You're releasing it at a different point or a different the timing is slightly off, so the hand might be slightly open. So what do? They try and pull it across the body late, or they'll push it. And you guys most people won't notice those things, but those usually contribute to a slightly wobbly ball that doesn't necessarily spin that great. Some of it's an anxiety thing or an excitement thing where you push up in the pocket and you're ready to rip a ball, and you squeeze the ball right at the end. Right before you're about to release it, you squeeze the ball. It happens sometimes on deep balls where guys get overly excited and will end up basically squeezing the hell out of the football. And so there's a lot of different factors, I think, but most of it is pronating the wrist too soon or too late, rather, or just breaking your wrist in the midst of the motion.
All right, then my guy, Twin Empire, he says, why didn't people talk about Peyton Manning's wobbly balls?
Because he still put the ball he still put the ball where I think it needed to be at the end of the day for the most part. And again, I think it was Joe right there said the end result. You're never if you go out if Trey Lance, Jimmy G, Joe Montana, Steve Young, whoever the hell it may be, Alex Smith, Kaepernick, whatever, we're all working on the field. And let's say they went 25 for 28 that day with 4 touchdowns and no picks. A couple deep balls. Let's say 50% of the balls they threw kind of had a little bit of tail to them, a little bit of wobble. Yes, it was wobbly, but what was the end result? People can still live with the end result. And that was with Peyton Manning. People could live with the end result. Yeah, it wasn't the prettiest thing to watch sometimes when it came out of his hand, but the dude anticipated the hell out of routes, and he knew his arm talent. In early years of Peyton Manning, he was very solid, right? But, mid to late years, that's when he started to struggle, I think, throwing a clean spiral. But he knew what he had, and he still anticipated routes very well. I think he did it late years with the Colts and early years with the Broncos.
Even late year with the Broncos, and I mean he couldn't throw a ball 20 yards, but his timing on it was still great, and the ball didn't come out all that well. But Demaryius Thomas, RIP Demaryius Thomas, he beat a guy off the ball right now at the line of scrimmage, and the ball was already in the air.
Exactly.
And it would just float to the perfect
anticipation
spot.
was crazy. He knew what he had. He knew coverages very well, and the end results were typically pretty good. So he got away with it a lot. And somebody else says because Marvin Harrison made that wobble look good, and you're absolutely right. People forget about the wobble when it's touchdowns being thrown at the end of the day.
Here we go. We're finally getting to the question. Thoughts on Jake Haener and his draft position. And again, Jake Haener, this is someone that you know pretty well. You work closely to this kid.
Yeah, Jake is a Bay Area product, actually. So he's from the Danville area. And Jake is the quarterback at Fresno State. Trained him over the summer or springtime over the summer. He also goes down to Tom House and the 3D QB guys. I think that Jake Haener is probably one of the most underrated college quarterbacks that I've ever seen. I think he's brutally underrated. Being around him and being around high-level pro guys at the SEC level, the Pac-12 level, high-level pro guys, and then college dudes at the SEC, the Pac-12, any level. That dude can throw with anybody. He's probably one of the best top 3 quarterbacks that I've ever been around. Smart dude. The guy's nails when it comes time to train. That guy takes the lead on everything. His movement stuff, he's not lazy. It's in and out of there. He's efficient. He can throw the hell out of the ball. His arm talent's crazy. He's undersized, and I think that's why he's not getting a ton of credit. But, being a 6-foot dude that can make all the throws on the field, he's going to be exciting to watch. I think Fresno State's going to be very exciting to watch this year. They got Cal Poly first, then Oregon State at home, and then they go down to USC. So they're going to see our Trojans down there in the Coliseum, and I think that's going to be a big game. But, yeah, I'm excited for Jake. I think that he's going to do really well this year, and I would see him probably – I would say second round. He could get into the first round, but I think people are going to knock him for his size, being barely about 6 foot. But he's probably going to be a second, maybe a low third-round draft pick this year. So it'll be fun to watch.
That. Here we go, and I got my guy Jason in here. He says he don't got nothing to say. He just wanted to say what's up to us. So shout out to my guy Jason Ponte.
Where's Grant? Tell Grant to get in here.
Tell Grant.
I'm ready for all the smoke with Grant. We've been
cool.
talking about this too.
Grant's cool. I told you Grant's cool.
No,
in person, he's cool. Yeah.
The Aaron Rodgers thing. That's what
the Aaron Rodgers thing.
Aaron Rodgers thing. So that front kick that he was doing, right?
Yeah. So I'm pulling it up. Let me make sure I have it pulled up. Here we go. Because it was a little interesting when I was watching it, and I'm just watching TV, and that's just how my eyes
Grant
go.
Cohn wants to smoke all day. I know Grant wants to smoke all day. He definitely does.
That's not what I meant to do.
Hey, you better hide that, Crock. You can get caught with something bad on the
Nah. Here we go.
Twitterverse there.
I know, right? Here we go. Boom. All right, so here's Aaron Rodgers, and I just noticed this little like I don't even. Oh, hold on, I gotta change the lever. So I don't even know what this is. That little kick, the little
The
flippy.
kick out, I don't know what the kick out is, but my assumption, and like I tweeted out, so the throw, Aaron Rodgers is like the pro at doing that pop steps on. Watch after the kick, he'll kind of pop and throw the ball, right? It's not his front foot in the ground, and then it's not his front foot in the ground and him just rotating through. Aaron Rodgers does that a ton with a lot of different throws. But typically when he does it off platform or in an off platform situation where he's pushing out of the pocket, he's moving quickly, and he'll pop step. And a lot of times they'll do that pop step. And we work on this with the college guys, with high school guys. You'll pop step like that. So basically, if you're moving in a certain direction, it's to slow your body down and kind of get set for that split second where I can stop everything and basically stop the front side shoulder and the hip from flying completely open. Then the arm, basically at that point, the wrist will stay open, and you're going to end up missing behind somebody if it's an in-breaking route to the right, or you miss in front of them if it's an in-breaking route to the left. He'll use that pop step to kind of stop the front side for that split second, and he'll get his shoulders. If you watch, he does a really good job. So when you throw a football, you want to kind of get your shoulders and hips. So both shoulders and both hips pointed towards the target, and he'll stop his front side.
All 4 points.
4 points, yeah. So he wants to get the 4 points to his target for that split second, boom, as he releases the ball, and that's what's creating that sudden start, sudden stop with the front shoulder not flying open. I don't know why he's working on it right now in just an on-platform situation where it's just a 3 and a hitch or a 3 and a reset for him, and then he's making that little kick step on the front side. But Aaron Rodgers breaks a ton of rules. He makes his own new trends that I don't even think he's intentionally doing, but he's probably, hate him or love him, weirdo or not, whatever the hell he's taking or not. I think that obviously Aaron Rodgers is probably one of the best, if not the best thrower of the football
Right.
in the game currently, if not ever. So,
And there was one last thing I wanted to get to here. Somebody said they're talking to me about where's the Danny Gray hate? And it's funny with like fans, right? Because if you have, I don't even want to say like something critical, but if you like point out things about something where like, hey, this player, he needs to improve on these things. And if there's enough things that you point out that, hey, this guy needs to work on that, it will come off as like hate to them. Like, so Joseph might be joking, but he's like serious in the sense of like, you hate on Danny Gray. Like, I think he truly believes that. And that's not it at all.
Croc hates on a lot of guys too. Don't worry. Croc used to hate on my swag, and I worked on it.
No, your swag was trash, though. But that was like
my swag is on top now. It's on a different level now. But
no. Yeah, see, so that's what I'm saying. I mean, like it is.
I worked on it. I did. I took your criticism and I worked on it.
Well,
now sadly, it's always in the back of my head. When I go see somebody on the field, I literally think I got to send a picture to Crocker because he's gonna roast this dude. It could be a high school kid, it could be a youngster, it could be kids showing up to my sessions. And then when the kids show up to my sessions, like the biggest pet peeve, and if there's any kids out there or if there's people watching and any kids there, if you're wearing Nike shorts with Adidas socks and Under Armour cleats, it's got to go.
It's got to go.
Just wear the blank socks. Do yourself a favor and wear the blank socks.
Wear the N1 socks from Walmart.
There you go, the N1 socks from Walmart. Do it. There you go.
Yeah, with Danny Gray, so he caught a long touchdown, right? So it's like, oh, Croc. And it's like, well, I never said he can't run a go route. Like, and if you look at it again, it's not me hating. It's just they gave him a favorable matchup. They matched him up in the slot. He's a 4-3 guy against a safety in the off coverage. Like, he's gonna run by that guy, right? Like that's what I would expect. With Danny Gray, him running straight past someone, especially from the slot, like that's not my. I don't even want to say issue with him, but that's not my main criticism of his game or in the area where I feel like he needs to improve. To me, it's playing fast throughout the route to free himself up through routes, right? For underneath routes. So his slants, his digs, his comebacks, his curls, his, like those are the routes where I think he needs to do like there has to be this sense of being able to play fast with high end controlled speed to win on those underneath routes. And that was something that I felt like he definitely could have improved on when watching his film in college. And to me, it was always about, hey, like, can he needs to work on those things, and how can he improve them? Has he worked on them? Right. So it was great to see him catch that bomb. That's awesome. And I think there are other things that he's going to do just to win naturally, right? With like a dig, right? If he just runs a dig at full speed against certain coverages, he's going to be open. He's going to catch the ball. But if it's man to man and he has to win on a stop route in versus press, is he going to win that? And to me, like that's what I want to see. Like that's the next step in his development that I would like to see. Win off the line and be able to win on a comeback, a slant, or an underneath route. The things that are going to be a little bit more consistent or higher percentage throws in for a quarterback. So those are the things I just want to see from him. But I don't think it's hate. I just think there's areas in this game where he can improve, and I would love to see him do it. So yeah, that ain't hate. Anyways, Greg, it's been awesome.
Yep. No, before I go,
Okay,
I gotta
okay.
give you a shout out, Crocky. I gotta give Eric Crocker the shout out. So, excuse me, my brother's calling me on my phone. Mike, stop calling me. I'll get back to you in a second. So, a lot of people on here don't even know. Some do. Some have just started following you probably. We go back now. I met you, I think, in 2008, right, Crocker? So was it
2009?
2009. Okay, that's when we played together. But I think when you first showed up, it might have been late 2008.
Yeah.
If not, it was early 2009.
Right.
The dreadhead kid from Stockton walking in the building with Donald, Angry Donald, who people probably know about on here, who was one of my receivers. Crocker was obviously a DB with us. But we go back now, it's 14, 15-ish years. And I've seen Crocker through the years go from the college football world or the junior college world with a son, right? You had who was it, Juice, right? Juice was a youngster, right? I mean,
he was like 2 years old.
He was a baby. And you going through junior college, and then you going into Arkansas Monticello, and then to the Jets, and then Arena Football League, and then training people and working security, I think, or whatever it was at the school, at Edison or one of the high schools. And I remember seeing you 5 years ago now at a 7-on-7 tournament here in Fresno. And I had seen you a few times in between, be doing quarterback training at Stockton, and obviously on social media, but saw you here in Fresno. For the people that don't know, look at the duster. Look at the duster on there, Kevin, right there. Kevin's my good buddy, by the way. So my brother and Kevin have been calling my mustache the duster. So that's what we're going to call it for now. But no, I just want to give you a shout out because I remember at that 7-on-7 tournament, you told me you wanted your own facility. You wanted to start doing this. And we've talked on the phone, off podcast stuff. Like, dude, I started my quarterback stuff and I worked in finance and went through struggles, and I had a kid and a mortgage and getting laid off, 5-6 years ago, to turning this quarterback training stuff full time for the last 5 years now. And I told you, dude, go get it, go get it, go get it. Like, if your wife supports it, just go get it. And fast forward now, you're one of the most followed dudes for the 49ers. I never thought I'd be sitting here talking about 49ers quarterbacks and on a podcast. And you're one of the most followed dudes for 49ers fans. You started out writing, doing some stuff like on articles online.
Yeah.
And now I'm seeing you on Bleacher Report, and we're doing podcasts on YouTube, and it's all over the place, and everybody wants to talk to Eric Crocker. But you also got a successful business, and you got the facility out there in Arkansas now that is just coming to it's going to be completed here soon. For those who don't know, Crocky's got this badass facility that's coming to Arkansas in Monticello. He's got the turf down. So I appreciate you. I'm glad that you went for it. I'm glad that you're doing what you do. Just from a friend to friend, I wanted to let people know, because some of these guys on here, some of these people on here probably don't know a lot of the shit that you've had to go through and a lot of the hoops that you've had to go through to get to this point, and the efforts that you put in to get to where you are, the sacrifices you make for your kids, that some of them are still in California, obviously, and the wife as well. So I appreciate you, dude. I'm freaking pumped for you. I know a lot
That's
of
what's
people on
up.
here, if they knew your story, would be pumped, but you've kicked ass and you're chasing the dream, and the facility's going to be done. I'm sure Croc's going to have some NFL guys out in Monticello, Arkansas at some point or another.
Yeah.
No, so I'm pumped for
It's
you.
crazy. Dude, I forgot. I mean, I remember now, but we sat there and talked at that tournament 5 years ago, and I did say, like, hey, man, like, this,
You
this is
had the
what I'm
plans. You were
thinking.
showing me the plans in your phone. Like, hey, I think I'm going to open a 2,000 square foot facility down the street from St.
Yeah.
Mary's High School or something like that, or 1,000
Yeah.
square feet. And you were going to start training people in Stockton. And now you're going to have probably the baddest facility in Arkansas in the whole damn state. So
Yeah.
it's crazy, man. Time has gone on, and you're doing what you love, and get to be a part of it with a podcast on here, and obviously with a bunch of people that are following you along in the journey as well. So I
I
appreciate you.
appreciate that. Here,
I'm pumped for you.
this is the last thing, Greg. Eric, Donald, Greg, all on the show. We got to make it happen.
Oh, I don't. Have you ever had Donald on the show? Because I
No.
remember we did a podcast last year, and then we got off the camera, or we got off the actual live show, and then me and Donald talked for another hour.
Yeah.
But Angry Donald, I don't know. Eric might gain some fans and lose some at the same time if Angry Donald came on here, because he's just wild. He's too wild sometimes. But I love Donald.
How was he? Cause so there are people here that know him. There are people that met him. Cause Donald goes to like some 49er stuff with me. He goes to games with me.
Too.
So they see this Donald, right? Like they see the Donald now. But how was Donald as a football player?
Angry. Donald as a football player, I think that he was a motivated dude. He took on a leadership role that probably some few people didn't think he would take.
Yeah.
I think that he rose to the occasion. You know, he obviously went through some ups and downs, and I think that with what he did, Donald was probably one of the best blocking wide receivers I've ever been around. That dude he wanted to be a safety, and he was playing offense is what I got out of him. Donald would smack the hell out of people blocking. He gave 100% effort, and the dude, you could look him in the eyes on the field in the huddle, and you knew what you were getting out of Donald. So I always appreciated his efforts. You know, he was a good teammate. He was a fun teammate to be around.
Yeah, and he was a all conference receiver 2 years in a row. All conference receiver.
Yep. Maybe we will have to get. You know what? We should get Donald on here, because Donald, for those who don't know, Donald is a Steelers fan, and Donald might be going through some issues this year, going from Big Ben to who they got. Is it Trubisky?
Trubisky, yeah.
We're going to see what the hell is going to happen, but we might have to have him on after the first couple of weeks and let Angry Donald just go off. And I hope that people roast him in the chat if they are doing bad, because you never know where it's going to go with Angry Donald. So I hope that he just gets. I hope that people just flame him in the chat if it's not going great for them. But you know, maybe Trubisky will go there and turn some things around. I don't know, but
Donald is he loves football as much as me. So people, you know, I talk about football, all this. When Donald and I are together, this is all we do. All we do is talk about football. Like that's it. So as much as I love football, love Niners, like Donald loves football just as much. So he is a great person to talk football with, but he might not know how to articulate that. And if people are flaming him in the chat, he's gonna want to like shoot everybody. So we'll get him on. We'll get him on.
I'm gonna be excited for that one. I might have to have a drink before I get on with Donald.
Yeah, not definitely. Well, all right, Greg, man. Hey, we're gonna be back here, same time, same place next week. And there might not be much to talk about. I know Trey Lance isn't playing, and a lot of quarterbacks aren't playing right now. But we'll find some things to talk about. But definitely come season, we'll be here every Tuesday evening to talk quarterbacks. And not just 49ers quarterbacks. So
comment, Kenny Pickett. That's who it was. Pittsburgh, Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, well, he's not playing. I mean, they got Trubisky the starter. And then they got Trubisky as a starter, and then they have Mason Rudolph as the backup. Kenny Pickett's a third-string quarterback right now. They just drafted him in the first round.
We're going to have to talk to Donald about the Kenny Pickett draft pick. I'm sure you already have some knowledge on that, but we're going to have to get him on here.
right.
And obviously, in talking about that stuff and I cut you off, but we're going to bring some dudes on the show this year. I think that some people will be entertained. Some people can spit out some questions too. Some quarterback coaches, some high-level quarterback coaches that work with pro guys across the league, some past NFL players or NFL quarterbacks, and maybe some former 49ers quarterbacks as well, if we can. So we're going to try and get as many people as we can on here and let everybody have at it and ask some questions. But I think it'll be good. I'm looking forward to it.
Hell yeah, let's do it. All right,
Yep.
but that's gonna do it for this episode. I think we're gonna call it Air It Out. Look, we're still working through the kinks. We got his Instagram or Twitter name wrong right now. Come on, Chris, man. My guy Chris, he helps me with all this stuff. He got the Instagram name, the Twitter name wrong. But we're gonna get all that stuff ironed out. We're gonna get an official name for this show, and we're gonna come at y'all live every Tuesday. But until then, we'll see y'all next week.
Appreciate you, Croc.
Yeah, peace.